some real estate and that I went to go look at, and I had a dream about it the night before, and it was really creepy. You should go look at it. It's in the video. It's in the IG video folder. So we're going to continue talking about that. I'd like to finish kind of talking about that. I was rambling like crazy, and it was getting super dark, and I couldn't even see myself on the camera anymore. So I kind of cut it short, and I was cut it short, but I couldn't shut the fuck up. So I wanted to just tell a couple of stories today that have happened to me over the years. Like one of them that was just really like crazy powerful. And if you're wondering where I am, I have an apartment downstairs from my house. That's a legal rental, so I'm putting it together for an Airbnb, and it's in the process of being furnished. So I'm down here because it's nice and quiet. Obviously it's not rented yet, so I'm sitting in the kitchen and I'm filming down here. So yeah, so I'll start telling a couple of things that have happened to me over at least 15 years. I kind of was trying to remember a bunch of them. I literally have a book upstairs that I couldn't, because I moved like a year ago to here, so I couldn't find it, but I was trying to remember some really crazy things. Like one time I had, I was living in the city, and I woke up, and what I do now is I make sure I tell every single person in my life the dreams I have, because for a couple of years I was like telling people the dreams I had after the thing happened, and they'd be like, oh yeah, like I'm sure that was exactly how your dream went. And I'm like, yeah, it was. So now I tell them beforehand, and it makes it like, a little more bulletproof. So basically I was living in the city for many years, like probably 15 years. And I was at my boyfriend's house at the time, became my husband, but he was my boyfriend at the time. I was at his apartment, and I had this dream that my mom's dog, whose name was Woody, that Woody had was running in my mom's yard and got like his feet caught on the dirt and slashed his feet open, and there was blood everywhere. And in my dream I was looking at his feet, and he was just like, his four paws were on the ground, and he had like white stuff like wrapped all around his four legs. And so I woke up and I told Rob, I said, I had the craziest dream about my mom's dog. And I told him the story, and he didn't think much of it, but I knew that it felt super real. So I went to work, and I called my mom up, and she wasn't there. She wasn't answering, so I just left her a message. And then like 8 hours later, she called me back when I was at my boyfriend's apartment then. And she's like, you would not believe the night we had. Woody was in the backyard and running back and forth like where the fence is. And he apparently like found a piece of glass or something that there was, while he was running back and forth on this like track, this little path, because there was somebody outside the fence. And he cut all his feet open. She goes, we've been at like the emergency room the entire night. He's had all his legs bandaged. And she said he has it looks like he's wearing 4 like tube socks right now. And it was the exact visual that I described. So, I was like, you see, I told you, I knew, blah, blah, blah. Like I knew that was real. Like I felt it. And, it's kind of crazy too, because I've had so many of these things happen, and if you're not around the right people, they don't get you. Like, they just don't understand that you're, like, legit. They think you're, I don't know, like, I just think, you have to be around people that have that sort of natural intuition. They just get it. Because I would just, like, be trying so hard to explain to him that actually was something that it was so real. And even when it happened, he was like, I'm like, do you not remember the conversation I had with you this morning about my dog? He's like, no, that's weird. I'm like, it's more than weird. It's like, it's beyond. So I've had a lot of things like that. So over the years, what I would do is I would constantly be telling him stuff, like even if it was just a dumbass dream, I would just constantly just tell him like the dumbest little things. I think he got really tired of hearing my dreams. But I had this thing happen to me once where I woke up and I was like, I had the weirdest dream. Like, that's just something that I always say. I had the weirdest dream. I woke up and I thought, oh my God, I have the weirdest dream. And it was, I said, I had a dream that like there were all these animals and they were really flat. By the way, before I say anything else, like, how do people do this for a living? Like, they go on a camera and they don't, like, they have to make, the makeup has to be perfect. Like, I literally look what I look like. Like, look what I look like. It's kind of crazy. It's like 1,065% humidity outside. It's raining, it's hot as hell, and I look like this, and I go, oh, I'm just gonna go on a camera and not really care. Yeah, I don't know how people do this all day. Like, it would just drive me crazy. Like, if I had a really, because you have to really kind of resign yourself to the fact that you look like shit like 90% of the day, unless you really try it. So anyway, so I was telling him about this, going back to the dream, I was telling him that I had this really crazy dream about these little animals that they were all flat. And I was like, they were like flat. Like if you looked at them from the side, they looked like the regular animal. But when you like looked at them this way, like straight on, you couldn't see them. They were like paper. And there was like a hippopotamus, there was an elephant, there was a really like oversized llama. There was a pig. That's all I remember right now. This was a long time ago. There were those 4 animals. And I said, they're usually animals that had like volume to them. But that's what made it so funny, is that when they looked at you straight on, they were just gone. And, didn't really feel like anything, like didn't feel like, it felt like nothing to him. He was like, it just sounded like a weird dream. And later on that afternoon, we were living in the city and we were living near South Street Seaport. And there was like a mall there and it was like raining out. So he was like, oh, let's just go into the mall, which I never did. But anyway, we went into the mall and we go up the escalator. And the first thing we see is this store. It was like some type of art store where they had different like artists with their like, some people made stuff out of wood, some people made stuff out of metal, some people had paintings, that kind of thing. It was like kind of like a gallery. And we go up there and in the window are pig, llama, elephant. What did I say the last thing was? Pig, llama, elephant, and a hippo. And they were all, they were made out of metal and they were paper thin. They were just the outline of the animal on like these little stilts. And when you looked at it this way, it was like gone. Like it had nothing to it. It was just these tin, it was like that was the point of the exhibition. It was like, oh, these fat animals are like normally have all this like poof to them. But when, the guy did them, he made them like really skinny. So that was like, hi Shane. That was like the kind of thing that like would happen, that I would just be like, is that just a coincidence that I just had a dream about skinny hippopotamuses, but then I go and I see these animals made out of metal that were so incredibly skinny? So no, like knowing all my dreams and how all my dreams have always had these incredible like, reality checks, I realized like, no, I had some type of premonition that we were going to see that thing. How or why, I'm not really sure. So so over the years, I just got to the point where I just tell everybody my dreams, whether I believe them or not. I've had dreams of plane crashes, and planes don't crash. Like, I mean, occasionally they do, but like they generally don't crash, right? So like you don't ever really hear like a Boeing went down. You just don't. It's like kind of rare. And I remember like one morning I woke up and I was like, a plane's gonna crash today. I know a plane's gonna crash today. And I woke up and we went and we grabbed a newspaper. Remember, it was Newsday, which is funny because like who buys Newsday? But it was Newsday, and on the cover of the paper was this plane crash. And I just, like I said, I had they're just feelings. That wasn't a dream I had. I just woke up with that feeling, and, sometimes that happens and you just think, you don't want to like entertain every single thing you think of, because not everything you think of is going to be legit, like in terms of like, it being really like something that's going to happen in real life. But like when I've had the amount of circumstances that I've been in where it has happened, it's hard for me to just ignore things that are just strange. If I feel something, I tell someone, I'm like, don't do that today. Don't go there today. Like when I was like, 14 years old, maybe even younger, what am I saying? I was probably like 12 or 13. Because in Brooklyn, when you're 12 or 13, they treat you like you're 20. Like your parent, like back then, like the parents just let you go. I was going to the city when I was like 13. But there was this place that my friends used to go to drink. It was like underneath a bridge, like a bridge, like an overpass. And if you go underneath it, there was like a little hill, and the kids used to all like hang out and drink beer and shit there. And I remember I remember what he had to go through this like really like nasty like kind of like lot to get there, and because it wasn't like a place we were supposed to be hanging out. And so I remember I was walking and I just had this surge. Now that's intuition. And I remember I was with my friend Anne, and I said, I had a dream about this place. Something bad's going to happen. We have to leave. And she goes, what? And I go, we have to leave. And I just started running. Like it was so much adrenaline I had. It was all like fear. And I wasn't like a fearful kid. Like I was like just any other kid. Like I would have went underneath that bridge in 2 seconds. But I just had this intuition to get out of there. And it was definitely not a good place. You know, it was like a really creepy place. It wasn't pretty. So my whole life I've had this happen to me. So I've just learned to kind of listen to it. So on my post on my Instagram post that I posted, I had a little snippet of 9/11 stuff, right? So I wanted to share with you. That was really the main reason I wanted to, you know, kind of do this video, because I wanted to document it and just have it, and whoever could watch it whenever they want. When 9/11 happened, we had just bought a loft in the city. I was married at the time, and we like renovated it, like the whole like dream bullshit. You know, had little kids at the time, and you know, I was working my ass off. I was in advertising, and I was an art director for many, many years, and ridiculously, you know, time-consuming job, owned you 7 days a week, you know, that kind of thing. So, you know, I did the old, like, got to get a babysitter so I can go work to buy this place, and my husband did the same thing at the time. Like, that whole lifestyle that I've learned to be like, yeah, that's a bunch of bullshit. So I was, you know, I had this job, and I had a babysitter, and I loved her, and I still love her. Even though she's not around anymore, but I still love her. She was a very special person. But my kids were very little. I had Derek, who was an infant at the time, and Justin, who was probably, you know, 4, 3.5, 4. And I used to just have this really strict, and we lived in Tribeca, and she used to take, you know, I had like really stringent sort of rules about where she can go, and where she couldn't go. And she, you know, loved me and respected me, and so I just said to her, I just need to know where you're going at all times. So one day, you know, she's like, oh yeah, I would never, we just go to the park. And she comes home to my house, and I come home from work, and I was like, how was the day, blah, blah, blah. She's like, good. I'm like, what'd you do? She's like, oh, we just went to the park. And I was like, oh, cool. You know, that sounds fun. And she leaves, and then Justin was very little at the time, my older son, who's now like 23, but like, he was very little, and he literally looked at me and he goes, I want to go to the place again with the tree. And I go, what are you talking about? Like, what tree? He goes, the big tree. He used to call it a twee. The big tree in the store. And I was like, where's the big tree in the store? He goes, well, all the books. And I go, there's no, it's Tribeca. Like, there's no buildings here higher than 5 stories. Like, there's, you know. So the next day I saw her, I was like, what is he talking about? Like, what tree? And she said, oh, we go to the World Trade Center. We go to the World Trade Center. There's a big bookstore there, and there's like a kid's bookstore, and they have like a fake tree in it. And as soon as she said that, now of course everybody now has that feeling, like when they say World Trade Center, everybody now goes, ugh. But at the time there was no reason to feel that way. I mean, I'm a native New Yorker. Like, I never had that feeling in my life about anything, like especially a building. And I said, ooh, I don't know. I said, I don't know about that, but I don't want you there. There's no way you're going there. And she's like, no, you gotta go. They do the book readings and they have a little play. I said, I don't care. Like, it was such a visceral response I had. It was all like in my stomach. And I was like, nope, you're not going there ever again. I said, and if I find out you go there again, there's gonna be a big problem. So she was like pissed, and she left. And she left, and that night I was telling my husband at the time, I said, yeah, you know, she's taking him to the bookstore. I said, I just have such a bad feeling. I don't know what it is. And he goes, you're being ridiculous. You're just so possessive, and you're so like overly protective and all these like whatever things. And I was like, no, this is not anything about that. I just have a really bad feeling. So, he, you know, of course thinks I'm crazy. Next week goes by, same exact thing happens. She comes back, and she has this little like CD in her hand, and I go, oh, like Justin comes run, you know, my son runs over and he shows it to me, like, look what Patricia bought me. And I was like, oh, this is so cute. Where'd you get this? And she says, oh, at that bookstore. I said, no, you're not allowed to go to that. Why are you going back to the bookstore? Like, I flipped out. I was like, this is so bad. She said, you don't understand. It's such a great store. You have to go and look. I know the city inside and out. And I was like, I know the bookstore. So I just said, I am acting so incredibly like off the handle for something like this. And that's not like me, like to be that way. I said, stay right here. Stay right here. I said, I'm going to go right now. I'm going to run to the bookstore. I'm going to go. It was 12 to 14 blocks away, which is why when 9/11 happened, we left and we moved up here. But we were like super close to the Trade Center. So I went to the Trade Center and I walked there. And I took the escalator up to the bookstore, and the second I got up to the top of the escalator and I looked at the bookstore, I started hyperventilating. My heart was like ripping in my chest, like I can't even tell you how hard my heart was beating. I was literally hyperventilating. I was like this, like that, like you see in a movie. And I like booked it down the escalator. I didn't even take the escalator like the normal thing. I like ran down the escalator like I could not get away from that building fast enough. And I hailed a cab. I was walking distance. I hailed a cab. That's how scared I was. And I got back to my apartment. I opened the door and I looked at her. I said, you are never going there again. And she said, what? Like what? I said, you are never going there again. Ever. Ever. And she left and she was fuming. And, you know, I told my at the time, my husband, and he's like, you're being so irrational, like, you know, all that shit. The classic, like, kind of reaction. You're being so this, you're being so that. I was like, listen to me really carefully. Intuition doesn't have there's no rationale behind intuition. You can't, you know, and he's just like, you're crazy. So that week, you know, I used to go for runs on the West Side Highway and stuff. I was going out for a run and I kept looking back at the World Trade Center. I'm like, I keep seeing like one tower. I kept seeing all these visuals in my head. And I was looking around at people's faces because I'm like, it looks like one of the towers fell. And I feel like the tower's going to fall. So I just kept looking at people's faces, like how funny that is, like to see if anything was going on, like to see if there was panic in people's faces. And nobody, everybody was just going on their merry way. And I got back to my apartment. And, you know, I said to Rob, I said, I just, there's something about the towers. I feel like they're going to fall down. I don't know what it is. I said, I don't know what it is. And he's like, oh my God, you're crazy. Oh my God, you're the only person in Manhattan that would ever think that. And I was like, my son's school was PS 234, which was right near there. And so I said, no, I said, I know it sounds insane, but I'm just telling you what I feel. And 6 days later, the World Trade Center fell. 6 days later. 6 days. 6 days later, the World Trade Center fell. And I fired my babysitter, needless to say. You know, I love her. I still love her. But I fired her for not listening to me because I think a mother's, you know, instincts are just like, you just don't go against that shit, you know. And actually, that's when I quit my job. I was like, I'm going to freelance. I can't deal with that shit. I can't have somebody else, like, responsible for the life and safety of my family. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, I'm such a hands-on person. So that was it. That like kind of changed my life. When I saw that happen, she called me that morning. She called me up. It was a Tuesday morning. I'll never forget that. And she's screaming, crying on the phone, going, you knew, oh my God, you knew. And I was like, yeah, you're fired. Like, like you're crying to me now, but you didn't listen to me before that. And I know it sounds completely irrational, but I knew my track record of having these feelings. And even though it still made no sense to me because it was such an outlandish, you know, it was an outlandish sort of, you know, expectation. It was so on my mind, I could not get it off my mind. I was like obsessing over this. And he's like, oh, we're not, like, my ex-husband would be like, oh my God, we're not talking about the World Trade Center falling again. I'm like, no, we're going to, because I'm telling you, I feel it. Like, I feel it, something. When I was in that building, I felt something wrong. And that is something you cannot, you know, put your finger on and explain to anybody, like, well, what did you feel? It's like sheer panic and just fear. And this was my city. I mean, I grew up in New York, like, so it wasn't like I had any issues with tall buildings or anything like that. So that was it. That to me was like the deal breaker when I just said, all right, I trust my instincts at all points in time. Hi, darling. I just said, if I knew the World Trade Center was falling and I had that feeling in my stomach, I can't overlook any little feeling that I have, ever. Even if I'm completely wrong, I don't even give a shit, I just want to make sure that, I communicate to people when I feel something. Even if I'm wrong, I don't care if I look crazy. And the crazy thing is, like, when the World Trade Center fell, after I had that complete instinct that it was going to fall, and everybody in my life said I was insane. They said, do you know what you're saying? I remember that's exactly what they said to me, because do you hear what you're saying? I said, I hear exactly what I'm saying, but I feel like there's something that's going to happen in that World Trade Center. I feel it. I just feel it. And 6 days later, the towers fell. Now, how do you go about living your life that way anymore? Like, how do you go about, like, living this, like, being carefree about anything anymore when you have a thought? Because sometimes you have a thought and it's completely irrational and wrong, right? So, I've had, many thoughts in the past where I've thought, something bad's going to happen, and it didn't. But I have to entertain it as if it's real, because, especially if it's a bad thing. If it's a good thing, well, who cares? Like, you don't have to, put that much thought into it. It's like, if something good happens, great. And when something bad is going to happen, you have to share it with people. And, sometimes, again, like, you have no way of knowing whether it's going to happen or not, but your instincts, like, especially women, like, their instincts generally are really kind of sharp. And I think that's, it's obviously because they're born to carry another life and to think about things that a baby's in your stomach and it doesn't make any noises, it doesn't communicate. So a lot of it has to be intuition, and you have to intuit a lot of that stuff. And that's why a lot of women have that. But yeah, so the World Trade Center thing was insane. Like I said, I've had so many things happen over the years. Like, I've had, these are really small things, but, like, my grandmother, lived with me growing up. It was my mom's mom, and she died, and then, like, a year later, we had a house in the country. It was in Millbrook, New York, and I get this, like, visit from my grandmother. And I wasn't that close with my grandmother. Like, she was very close with my sister, but I was always, like, the rebel, and she didn't like me because of that. I understand it now, now that I'm a mom and stuff. But, my grandmother was always, like, a little more intimidated by me, I guess. But she visited me, and she was young. She had, like, dark hair, and she just was smiling, and she just looked very, almost like angelic. Like, she did have, like, I'm not religious at all. She had, like, a white dress on. What is with the white dress that people have visions of? She had, like, a white, like, gown on, and so she had this white dress on. She had short black, dark hair, and she just was smiling, and it was like a nice dream. And she had died, like, maybe 4 months before that. And so my sister was really close with her, and I said, it's so weird. I don't remember the date. I wish I did remember the date. It was like April something. It was like April, like 11th or something like that. It was sometime mid-April. And I said, it's so weird. I said, I had a dream of Grandma, and she came into my room, and she looked young, like it was her birthday, I was like, it's like she was coming to me, like, fresh, And I said, it's so weird, though, because it wasn't on her birthday, because her birthday was, like, March 27th. And my sister says to me, Dawn, her birthday was the day you actually had a dream about her. I said, no, her birthday was March 27th. She said, no. When she died, and this is my sister saying this, and she said, I cleaned out her apartment. I found a little box, like, she was born in, like, the early 1900s. She said, I found a little box of her birth certificates and all the records and hospital stuff. She said, we were celebrating her birthday on the wrong date for her entire life. Her birthday was actually the day you had the dream about her. So that was, like, such a bug out that she actually visited me on her birthday. Like, it was her actual birthday that she came and just sort of hovered over me, like, what, again, what is that? Like, what the hell is that? She And I always wonder too, like, why is it that you can dream about somebody shortly, you don't dream about people for 20 years. Like, there's a window in there where people die, and that you can kind of get in on that little like wave of them transitioning somehow. My mom, like I was saying yesterday's live, my mom wrote a book on all the stuff that's happened to her after her mom died. Like things that, like lights, her whole apartment was lit up one night. She lived downstairs from my mom, and my stepdad and my mom lived upstairs. And, my stepdad would go to walk the dog, and he'd be coming back to the house and see all the lights on downstairs. Like all the lights on her bedroom, whatever. And he'd come home, and he was a retired cop. So he's not like, he's not easy to convince of anything like this, but now he's like, oh my God. So he went into the house, and he says to my mom, did you go downstairs and like turn all the lights on or something? And my mom's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I haven't moved. That kind of stuff, finding little things of hers in her car. Like she'd get out of the car to come to the store, go into the store. She comes out, there's something of my grandmother sitting on like the chair, like a handkerchief. One that was like a handkerchief, like it's sitting there. Like weird shit like that. And then, it happened for like 6 months, and then it didn't happen anymore. It just stops, which is sad, because you want it to keep going, to remind you of that person. But, that's the part of us that we have to learn to accept. I guess I would say that we don't ever go anywhere. We're always there. But the little clues, go away. Maybe you get incarnated into somebody else, or maybe they just leave you alone, because that's part of your growth, is letting them go, right? So it's very beautiful, but it's like with dogs too. So like I've had many pets. As you guys know, I love animals. Obviously I'm vegan, so I don't eat animals anymore. But all my pets, all of them have come back and visited me. Now I had 3 dogs as of last, a couple months ago, 6 months ago. And Luigi, he was 21 when he died. He was my Italian Greyhound. Love that dog. Crazy Italian Greyhounds. They love to pee everywhere, just so you know, if you ever want to get one. Hard to housebreak, that's just their breed. But anyway, he passed, he died. And this is crazy, because it was like, I knew I wasn't going crazy, because if anybody wasn't there, I would think, wait a minute, am I going crazy? So my dog used to if I was like in the bathroom or something, my dog would scratch on the door. And it's a very distinct sound of the dog's nails scratching on the door, right? Everybody knows it sounds like I could do it on one of the doors in here. And Luigi was the only dog that did that. Like my other dogs would just be like standing there, you know what I mean? Like Luigi just like needed to get into the room. He was very needy. So he died, and like, I want to tell you how long it was since he died. It was maybe a month later, maybe 3 weeks, something like that. And I'm in my bed. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't drinking. I wasn't high. I wasn't anything like that. I was just sitting in my bed, and I was reading. And my 2 other dogs were with me. I had Mocha, who was like 19. She's still upstairs. And Nacho was in my bed with me. And they were sound asleep, because I was reading for like an hour. And it was like 10 o'clock at night. My son was in his other room, my son Derek, my younger son, he was in his room. And I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden, I'm reading, and all of a sudden I hear, I want to do it for you, like on a door. It was the sound of that, so loud, like it was so loud. It wasn't like, what's that sound? It was so loud, scratching at my bedroom door. And I just like, first I stopped, like thinking, did I leave a door open? Did a squirrel get in the house? Like my brain is going so fast. And then it happened again. And then my 2 dogs, who are sound asleep, completely sound asleep, lurch up and stare at the door. Like they were in, Mocha was snoring so loud. Nacho was under the blankets, like completely, he's one of those burrowers, like he likes to like go under the quilts. Lurches up, and all 3 of us now are staring at the door. And now, what do I think? I'm like, oh, it's Derek. He's fucking around with me. Like, he's like pretending he's a dog or some shit. And I go, Derek? He's 20. But anyway, so he's not like a little kid. I was like, Derek, no answer. And I yell really loud, Derek, no answer. So then I text him, Derek. And he writes me back and he's like, what's up? And I'm like, did you just scratch at my door? And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, you didn't scratch at my door. He's like, no, Mom, I'm literally like half asleep. What is that? What is that? What is that? The dog came to my house and scratched on my door? Like, that's some weird shit. And I feel like it only happens to me. Like, why didn't it scratch on Derek's door? Why did it scratch on Derek's door, right? It's fascinating, right? It really is. It's beyond. And the next morning, and like when I try to convey this to people, I swear, I think people think I'm crazy. I'm like, listen, I'm the most stable person. I don't take Tylenols. I don't take drugs. I've never taken a drug in my life. Well, I smoke a little weed occasionally, but like, I literally don't take an Advil. I've never been on a prescription medication ever. I mean, unless I've had an infection. I'm pretty grounded, you know? I'm not a crazy person, you know? So, anyway, I was trying to tell him that, and when I even bring it up to the stage, he's like, all right, with the scratching on the door, I'm like, how does that not bug you out? If it was just me hearing that, I think I would have literally thought, I think I'm going crazy, because it was such a loud scratch. It wasn't like a little thing where you're like, oh, was that like a fan, even though the fan wasn't on. Was it a, you know what I mean? It was a definitive sound of a dog anxiously trying to get into a bedroom. That's the only way I could say. Anxiously trying to get into a bedroom. And I jumped out of the bed, of course, after Derek's like, I'm sleeping. And I opened the door and there's nothing there. I've had a cat that happened to once, like about 6 years ago. I had a cat, Pebbles, the cutest cat in the world. Like a cat that's like a puppy. Like you could swing the cat by its tail and it wouldn't even do anything. Like, you know, that kind of animal. Like I would never swing the cat by its tail, but so docile. And when Pebbles died, it was the exact same thing. Like in my room, I had this little wicker basket that was like, it's kind of hard to explain. I have a little alcove in my bedroom that I just like tucked this basket there because I didn't know where to put it. And then over the years, I would just like throw clothes in it that I would give to like, you know, Goodwill or whatever. And so it was just sort of sitting there. Like I never really, you know, it wasn't like I picked it up and I moved it ever. It was just permanently affixed to that like little corner. And, my cat used to like go in there and like sleep because there was all these like clothes that were like going to be donated or whatever. And when Pebbles died, again, this was the same time frame too. Now that I think about it, it was like, it wasn't like the next day. It was like a couple of weeks later. I'm sitting in my bed and I'm reading, and this went on for about 4 to 5 nights. I'd say 4, 5, 6 nights. Where every night I'd be sitting there reading and I would hear, you know, the sound of like if you sit on a wicker chair, you know, that crackly sound of like a wicker chair. I would hear the wicker chair. I hear the sound of the wicker like expanding, and I was like, I would think it was my dog jumping in there, kind of sniffing around, and I would yell at my dog. I'm like, Mocha, get out of the basket. Like, what are you doing? You know, and nothing. I would hear nothing, and then I just hear like someone trying to like kind of like settle into this basket. I'm like, Mocha, get out of the basket. And then I'm like, God damn, you know, and I get up and I pull the blanket back, jump out of bed, look in the basket. There is nothing there. Like Mocha's in the other room. Mocha comes into the room. I'm like, what are you talking about, Mom? And that exact thing happened like 4 or 5 nights in a row where I'd hear it. And then one night it just didn't happen anymore. Where I heard it, and I remember I went for my phone. I'm like, I got to record this. And by the time I like got my phone situated, it wasn't happening anymore. You know, and my mom's had stuff like that happen with her pets and stuff too. And my mom's very intuitive. When my mom was very young, she had a dream. She was always very intuitive, my mom. That's probably where I get it from. She had a dream that her and all her family was sitting around a table crying because her dad died. And her dad was not sick or anything like that. Her dad was a beast. My grandpa was like a beast. So there was no reason for her to have that dream. He was very young when she had that, you know, he was like 50 years old. And in the dream, everybody was around the table crying, wearing dark clothes like you would be at a funeral from back in the day. And the next day, you know, she went up and she went to go to work, you know, and she came home, and exactly what her dream was. Everybody was sitting around the table crying about her dad, and they said, "Grandpa, your dad, my grandpa, got electrocuted at his job today. He was an electrician, like a longshoreman or something, and he got electrocuted, and they found him with giant cables in his hand, and he died. So it was completely unexpected. But she knew when she walked in the house and she saw everybody sitting there, she knew immediately it was the exact same. It was like a snapshot of what she dreamt. So yeah, like what's up with that stuff? I mean, I would love to know if any of you guys have had like stuff like that, you know, like anything where you've had like a supernatural experience. I know it's like not the right forum to like write it, but if you could write it in the comments, like I would love that. Or you can even DM me. Like I'd love to hear these stories. Like you have no idea. Because I feel like, you know, most people don't have stories like this happen to them. So it just makes me feel like I'm not going really crazy, you know, like I just think it's awesome. I wish it happened more, actually. I wish it happened more like for the better. I wish I had better, but it seems like every time I have these things, it's always like something bad, you know, which is the part that I don't like. It's always like about death, you know, but I guess that's when the energy is free. Like I wish, like I told yesterday in yesterday's stream, I talked about like a voice that had come to me while I was sleeping and gave me lottery ticket numbers, and I went and I won the lottery. Like I won like $500 something. I almost won like $16 million, or whatever it was, like 12 million. A voice just said to me, write these numbers down, and I just was like frantically writing in the dark, like it was like 5 o'clock in the morning, and I'm like trying to scribble shit down that it was so many numbers too. So I like ran out to the store, and I like I said in this video yesterday, not to be redundant, but I've never bought a lottery ticket since, and I've never bought a lottery ticket before. I know, right? I would love that, especially over tea. And I love tea. You know how I love tea. The lottery ticket number is like, yeah, I was one number off from winning like $16 million or something ridiculous, but I still won like $540 or something like that. And like I said, I've never, ever, ever purchased a lottery ticket before that. And I've never purchased a lottery ticket after that. It was just something I knew. I'm like, why would a voice say that? I'm going to go get these, like, I'm going to go play these. And it's weird because it didn't say go to like play it on this particular like lottery card. I just went and grabbed it. You know, there was, how many lottery cards are there? So many, right? But I just went for like whatever the standard one was like New York State, whatever, New York Lottery, whatever. But yeah, there's just so many stories. You have no idea. There is so many I don't even remember. I've had dreams where I've like, when I was living with my mom, you know, when I was like a young little girl, where I like woke up and I ran into my mom's room and I'm like, check on Aunt Dina. And she's like, what? I'm like, check on Aunt Dina, her cousin. And she's like, Aunt Dina's fine. I spoke to her last week. She's fine, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, just call her. Just call her. I don't know why. Like, I feel, you know, it's like her second cousin. And like she calls, she's like, Aunt Dina's in the hospital. Like she's getting a stent like in her heart. And I'm like, what? Like these weird feelings. And I wasn't close with my Aunt Dina. I wasn't like we were like talking or anything. It was just like feelings and information that I feel come through the air. And it's always when I'm sleeping, aside from the World Trade Center thing. The World Trade Center thing was the eeriest shit that has ever happened to me. I mean, I was obsessively talking about the World Trade Center falling. And everyone's like, you gotta stop with the World Trade Center falling. Like, it is like, you're really out of control with that. I'm like, I don't want my kids ever near that building. Like, you know, whatever. I was just thinking as I'm talking about my mom actually had a really funny story happen to her. She's happily married. Now she's very old, my mom right now, like so old and like very not doing great. But, you know, several years ago, she had this like crush on Burt Reynolds. Does everybody know who Burt Reynolds is? Like, yeah, that guy. She had like a crazy crush on him. And she never told my stepdad. My stepdad, you know, 6'2", super handsome, like whatever, very masculine. But she was always like, no, never, you know, she would never want to have the conversation. So she would tell me all her dreams. Like, oh my God, I had a dream. She has this dream about Burt Reynolds, that her and Burt Reynolds are hanging out. And that morning, my stepdad wakes up and says to my mom, oh my God, I had a dream that you were with Burt Reynolds last night. Like, don't sleep with your heads close together. Don't sleep with your heads close together if you're married. That's all I'm going to say. Just make sure there's like a good chasm in between, like, or just put like a cement block in between you and the person you love. Something like some piece of titanium or something, so nothing can go in there. They know all your secrets. That's the only thing we have left is our dreams. And like they're dreamscaped. And he said, and my mom called me up like hysterical laughing. Like, again, like, what is that shit? That's like, because it's energy, it's frequency. It's like electric signals going through the air, the way a radio signal is going through the air, and you're a receiver. And you pick it up, you know? Like, that's how mothers and kids, like, everybody has this, like, we call it intuition. It's just energy that's just can flow into an electrical, you know, signals going into your brain, and you can kind of translate them, transmute them. You know, and I think mothers and daughters or mothers and kids can have a lot more of that connection as well, like a lot more of that natural kind of connection. When I was how old was I? I was probably like 21. You know, I was in college, and I had like a boyfriend at the time. He lived in Long Island, and I was at his house. I used to spend a lot of time there. And, you know, I had this dream that there was a man, and he was sitting in the middle of the ocean on a chair. It's a crazy visual. He's a man, he was sitting, and like the water was like up to his chest, and he was asleep. That was just the dream. And in the dream, there were like little fishies like jumping over his head. It's like very poetic, actually. It feels like it would be a cool video for something. And I was call my mom to tell her when I was coming home or something. And I said, oh my God, I had the craziest dream last night. I said, as I'm talking to you, I'm just remembering it. I said, I had a dream. There was this man, he's sitting in a chair, and all the little fishies were jumping over his head. And she said, oh my God. Like she was flipping out. She's like, Uncle Joe. Like I have the most classic Italian family. Like my mom's name is Marie. I have an Uncle Joe. I had an Uncle Nick, Uncle Pete, like all those classic Italian names, like bleh, whatever. So I tell her this dream, and she says to me, oh my God, was at Aunt Josie's and Uncle Joe's house last night. Uncle Joe, he was a big, like, he loved to fish. She said, Uncle Joe he was telling us a story last night, how he went to go fish. He went to the beach to go fishing, and he brought his chair. And he went out onto the sandbar, you know, that's a little bit further out. No, I have a Frank too. That was Uncle Frank, of course. Uncle Frank, that was my grandma's brother, Uncle Frank. I know there had to be more Franks than my Uncle Frank. He was the best. He loved opera. He was awesome. I love him, Uncle Frank. That's hilarious. So anyway, so Uncle Joe was telling my mom, oh yeah, I went out to go fishing. I took my chair out to the sandbar, you know, like the tide, and he brought his fishing stuff and blah, blah, blah out there with him, and he fell asleep. He fell asleep on the chair, like with this fishing rod in his hand, because there was no fish, because we're draining the oceans, but that's a whole other conversation. I'm kidding. I mean, I'm not kidding, but I'm kidding, because back then we weren't draining the oceans, but now we are. So he fell asleep. He said when he woke up, the water was up to his chest. There were no fishies jumping around him, but you understand the symbolism of that, right? Of me dreaming, because he was fishing, and this visual of him sitting in the water, that's a mom and a daughter kind of having this. There's no distance between like anybody. There's no distance between anybody ever, right? Hey you. There's no distance between anybody. We always think there is because we say, oh, we got to get in the car and I got to drive here to see this person, right? But there's no distance. When you meditate on somebody, boom, next day they call you. I mean, I know people don't believe that until they start meditating. So I really believe that I picked up my mom's brainwaves about my uncle sitting in the water up to here. Hi. And so, you know, that whole thing of like, I want to talk about the meditation thing, like how many times I've had meditations where I got into meditation a couple of years ago. I had some really, really difficult things going on in my life. I can't even get into them. They're just too crazy to talk about. And so my older son was in the hospital for a very long time. Not going to get into the details. He's amazing right now, but it was really, really touch and go for a very, very long time. I used to go into the hospital bathroom and just cry. First I'd cry for like an hour, not quite an hour, probably 10 minutes, bawl. And then I would just sit there and just go, I have to meditate. Like this has to happen. And I started meditation became a regular thing for me because I saw like what it did for me. So meditation, I've had so many experiences where I haven't talked to somebody in a year. Somebody that I was very, very close with, near and dear. And I was having a moment, you know, and I was like, I can't believe I don't talk to this person anymore. Like someone I was like kind of involved with, don't get into that, but someone I love to death. And I just said, I'm going to meditate and just be okay with this. And I was picturing this person's face so clearly. They were like I was in such a deep meditation that I was crying. Their face was right here. And I felt like it was like happy tears. Like they're here. Oh, they're actually here with me. Like they're actually here. Why am I sad? And the next morning I woke up and I look at my phone and there's a text message from this person saying, I miss you. Now, that literally a year of not talking. It wasn't like, oh, it was like a couple of weeks. It was like a year. Are you going to tell me that me putting out that thought so strong and having that immense feeling, it's not just the thinking. People always say, oh, think positive. It's not about that. It's feel it. It's like to actually feel that, whatever that thing is. You don't say you want it. You just have it. You don't look for it. And because looking for it says you don't have it. So you just keep chasing this lack thing. So I just felt like this was so real. Like the realness of it was so beautiful. And it all of a sudden became real. And that's happened to me so many times. It's happened with money, where I've been broke and I'm like, I need money, and I meditated. The next day I'd wake up and I'd get like a DM from someone on like Twitter saying like, I want to pay you like $2,000 for this thing. And I'm like, wait, what? You don't even know me. Like, you're going to give me this money? Like that kind of shit. And it always happens when I meditate, and it doesn't happen when I don't meditate. And I'm sorry I look like such shit. I keep looking at myself because I can't believe how humid it is outside. So anyway, that's like, yeah, that's not at all beautiful, but I love you for that. So I want to know more stories from other people though, because I could fucking talk a streak, and honestly, like, I don't even want to talk anymore, but, you know, I wish I knew more about what I'm talking about versus just having the experience. I wish I could say, this is how it happens. Like, it happened a lot more when I was younger, like when that guy came into my room. The video I did yesterday, I talked about a guy I was dating when I was 14, and his best friend's name was Nunzio, and his best friend had a brother. I didn't make that clear. I said it wrong in the video. It sounded like I didn't know my boyfriend's brother's name. What I meant was, it was my boyfriend's best friend's brother, and I had a dream about this kid, and he came into my room. I was probably 15 years old. I was dating this kid at the time, and he just came into my room, and at 12 minutes after 3 o'clock in the morning, and I knew that because I looked at the clock, and the clock said 3:12, and that's where I went to school, PS 3:12, so I remembered it. I kind of giggled, and I was like, wonder what? Like, I was like kind of in this like weird like phasey, like I was like half awake, and I was like looking at this guy standing right in my door, like the door was like slightly ajar. It was like right in the, you know, right there. And I knew it was him, and I was like, why is this kid Nunzio's brother in my room? Like, that's so weird. And I saw his ring on his hand, I saw the earring in his ear, I knew it was him, there was no question about that. And the next morning when I woke up and I told my sister, she was like, oh yeah, that's really weird. And then I came home from school and found that the guy got shot and killed. Like, that's fucking crazy. And since that happened, to this day, that number 312, I saw it today in the car. I was ready to take a picture of it, but then it turned to 313. And I was driving. I was like, oh, I want to show people that I think of that number all the time. 312 shows up all the time. Now, someone could say, well, that's because you look for it. I'm not looking for it. At least not consciously. I'm not looking for it. And it comes up so much for me. It's that number that, like, glares. Like, I see numbers all day, but for some reason that number just... There's so many numbers that can come into my life, and for some reason, like, 312 just, like, it's always there. It's like a constant thing, right? Yeah, it is. It's really cool. You know, so, you know, a lot of that stuff happened when I was like you know, like the thing with the dog scratching was just a couple of months ago, like maybe 6 months ago, 5 months ago. And, you know, I have had a lot of other things, like so many things happen. That like haunted house like story is insane. And this just goes to show you, like, you tell that story to the average person and they're like, holy shit, like, are you kidding me? Like, whereas, like, I'm sorry, I'm not making this about an ex-husband thing, but like when someone would come into the room and I would be like, oh, you want to hear the craziest thing? He'd be like, you're not telling the like house story again, like the dream that you had about it. I'm like, how do you not see how amazing, like how insanely amazing that is, that that experience actually happened to us? Like, dream about a house, this so specific. Walk in, there's a piano. Walk into the next room, there's another piano. What abandoned house has 2 pianos in it? Like, what abandoned house is, and then the doors are slamming in the house. Like, what, you know? Oh my God, I just remembered something else that actually happened, but this isn't like a psychic thing. This is just a creepy thing. I'm telling too many stories, I know, but like, I got to get them all out. Why not? We had this house, this is when I was still married, in Westport. It was, we had an old onion barn, but then we sold our country house and we put this gigantic addition on, like a 2-story addition. And of course I did all the designing and stuff of it. And I got, the front door I got it on eBay, and it was this old church door. There were 2 of them. And I like waited up all night to like get like the, you know, like hit like the enter button on the auction at 1 second after the final like bid was in. Like I sat there at like 3 o'clock in the morning and just, it was like, oh, the bidder's like, you know, $300 before it, and it was like 1 second left before the auction went out, and I just hit it like 1 second, and I got the door, and I got like a zillion like emails. No, you can't have the door. That's for us. Like we blah blah blah. Anyway, so I got this door. I got both these doors. Phenomenal doors. Were from a church. Don't ever buy church doors, by the way. Don't ever buy old church doors ever. Don't buy anything from a church. Don't buy anything from a church. Creepy. Like, I don't know what I was thinking, but I got these church doors, right? And we only needed 1 for the front door, but it was like a bazillion pounds, this door. And so we wound up selling the other door to like some guy had a doctor, he wanted it for his wine cellar. So it was actually perfect. They're beautiful, beautiful doors. Like this thick and really, really, really like so heavy. We had to get a special lock for it. It was like it cost more money to get a lock for that thing than it cost for the door. But anyway, when my husband and I were going through our divorce, we were just going through our separation. So it's relevant to the story, which is why I'm telling you this. He was kind of crazy at that point. And I was sitting in like the den in the back of the house. And all of a sudden we hear, with my younger son at the time. And where was my older son? I don't remember, but I was sitting on the couch. We were like watching a movie. And we hear, like somebody got the door and slammed it as hard as you can imagine. Like the whole house literally shook. And me and Derek look at each other and I go, Rob, you know, I called him like, oh, he's coming in a rage. Like who else could it be, right? Comes in a rage. I'm like, Rob, no response. No response at all. Now I'm freaked out, completely freaked out. So I get up, I walk all the way to the entrance. It was a big entrance, like we had it looked like everybody called it like the Castle House, which was like crazy. It was like a stone turret in the front of the house, like ridiculous. Don't ever do shit like that. But no one was there. No one was there. Door was closed. I called my mom up. I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like the door just slammed shut. I thought it was Rob. I thought he was coming in like in some like crazy mood or drunk or some shit. And my stepdad, who was a retired police officer, said, you got to call the cops. And I was like, I don't want to. It's like 10 o'clock at like 11 o'clock at night, whatever it was. I'm like, I'm calling the cop. Like what? He's like, you got to call the cops right now. So I call Westport PD. They come to my house. Of course, she like reams me out for like not locking the door, having kids. And I was like, I wasn't going to sleep yet. You know, why would I lock the door? She went, they checked the entire house. It was a very large house. She went in every room, went downstairs, and checked everything. And she's like, there's nobody here, but you cannot leave your doors unlocked anymore. And I was like, yeah, this is crazy. Like, I don't know why. I was just not going to sleep yet, you're right. So she leaves, and we just don't know what it is. We're like, it was like someone said, all right, open the door, now slam it as hard as you can slam it, okay? And that's exactly what it was. And luckily I had someone sitting there to like testify for that. So they leave. A couple days later, I'm upstairs with my other son, and we're like sitting on the floor playing like Legos or something. Yeah, tough mom life, shit. What are you gonna do? Sitting on the floor playing Legos, same exact thing happens. Slam front door. Me and Justin look at each other, and I go, "What was that?" And he goes, "I go, who was that? Who do you have friends? Like, what's going on? Are your friends coming over?" Like, he was like so little. I was like, "Are your friends here? Like, what?" He's like, "Mom, what was that? What was that?" We go downstairs, same thing. Door was closed. It just opened and slammed. No idea. Okay? So, of course I'm thinking, this is just like purely insane. Now remember, the house that I bought was an old onion barn. It was like from like the 1800s. It was stone, completely all stone. And we put an addition onto the house. It was like another 5,000 square foot addition. And we put stone everywhere, and we put all the old stuff to match it to the rest of the house. A lot of stuff was like old vintage shit. The beams that we had put in, we had shipped in. Everything had like old energy in it, you know? So long story short, there's nothing short about my stories, FYI. We wind up, parting ways, selling the house, and selling the house. I buy another house. Rob gets another house, and that was that. Derek goes to high school, and he now meets the friends that own the house because we were in the same neighborhood, right? So he's in school, and this is like maybe 6 months after, we're already in our house, 6 months, new house, and he's at school, and he comes home, and he's like, "Ma, I like met the kids that live in our house, like that bought our house." I was like, "You're kidding me, that's so cool, like, that's amazing." And he said, they came up to me in the hallway, and they go, "Your house is haunted, right?" And Derek was like, "Oh shit," like, because we knew that, we fucking knew that, but we would never say like, "Oh, FYI, like we've been hearing like this shit." Like, I've heard people walking back and forth in my house, up in the one of the spare bedrooms. I would hear it. I'd hear the closet doors open, like that kind of shit. While I'd be downstairs in my office, I'm like, "What the hell is going on here?" Like, I was like, "Oh, it's my dogs walking around," and then all of a sudden I look down, I'm like, "Oh, they're all like right around the table here." So our house was definitely haunted. It was like an old house. And before we moved into the house, I had a dream. It was really cool. It was this African-American guy. the visual so clear to me. Blue overalls, red wheelbarrow, and like some type of truck in the background. That can't really like describe it. It was like a truck like with an open back. And that was just the only thing. I'm like, why would I don't know what that is, but that was just a visual that I just kind of stamped on that house when I like walked up to it. So yeah, so this kid tells Derek, "Your house is haunted." He was like in like whatever grade, 10th grade or something. And so yeah, so the house was haunted. Like, it makes me feel good. I was like, thank God it's haunted, because like I thought I was haunted. I was like, maybe it's just me, Like, why am I the only one talking about this shit? Like, nobody else around here is like experiencing anything like this. So yeah. So anyway. That was it. Like, I have so many, but I'm not even gonna bother like telling anymore, because they're just too many. And I can talk, and like your ears will be like pouring blood out all over like your bed and stuff. So I'm not gonna talk anymore. But if you guys really would like to, like, if you know anybody that's had really cool stories like this, please tell me. I want to know. I really, 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 really want to know. I mean, I read shit online and stuff, but like, it's really cool, right? Thank you, sweetie. It's really cool when you know somebody that it happened to, and you're just like, because you can like kind of bond on that level. You're welcome, of course. And if I have any other cool things, I think I want to start doing a lot of these lives talking about like various things, because I do love connecting with people, and I feel recently that there is so little connection in this world, after the whole COVID thing and the masks and everything, and everybody just so detached. And this is detached, I get it. Like, this is not like, oh, an intimate like gathering we're having. But I just love that we can kind of get to know each other a little bit too. I think it's really cool. I started my page out as just recipes and stuff, and then I realized, it's right. It's like everybody can get recipes anywhere. Like, there's nothing special about mine, and I'm getting really tired of cooking. Like, I'm just getting a little burnt out with like the cooking and the groceries and all that stuff. And like, I made tacos tonight. Like, everything is still sitting upstairs. I'm like, I'm not even hungry. I just made them, and I just thought, you know what? I kind of want to make this evolve into something different, for people that are looking for a little bit more of a three-dimensional picture of what lifestyle that I have, and that they kind of have as well. Because I think a lot of people that follow me where our sensibilities are similar. So, so that's what I think I'm going to do, right? More like health, lifestyle, some like cool shit, and love and relationships. I can go on about relationships too, because there's so much meat in that, as you know. Not always good meat, but sometimes yes. So that's it for tonight. And I think I really love that you guys spent it with me and like you listened to me. That's so cool. It makes my heart swell. And I hope that I could learn more about you also. And you can always contact me or always reach out to me for anything, and I'll always be there. I'm not a snob. I love all my friends, even if I never met them. I love aspects of everybody and their entirety as well. So feel free to like contact me for anything, and that's it. So I'm gonna go eat my tacos now, even though it's 10 o'clock. I never eat after 7 o'clock, by the way, but tonight I'm just gonna break the rule and I'm gonna go eat my peppers and onions and like rice, taco, whatever stuff I made upstairs. So I love you guys and thank you so much for listening. And we will definitely do this again soon. Maybe I'll give more of a heads up so this way, but you can watch it. I'll save it in my IG. If you missed the beginning of it, because I just talked for myself for the first like 20 minutes, which is good because I just wanted to like document everything instead of waiting for people. Definitely check it out, and then we'll reconvene at a later date. Okay. I love you guys. Kisses. Talk soon. Bye.